All right, let's just jump right in. Look at this number, $5.92. That's what people in California are paying on average for a gallon of gas right now. And a number like that, it really hits home for millions of us. Suddenly, just filling up your car becomes this painful reminder of a war happening thousands of miles from your front door.
And it's not just some abstract number on a gas station sign, right? I mean, for real people like Curtis Davis, who's a delivery driver, he's saying it's forcing him to choose between filling up his tank for work and doing stuff with his kids. That is the real-world cost of a war that feels so far away.
So today, we're going to break down how this war with Iran is creating this massive ripple effect. And you'll see it's touching, well, everything, from what's in our wallets to a huge, growing global crisis.
Okay, so let's start with the thing we're all feeling first, right? The price of this conflict. And I want to be clear, this isn't some theoretical abstract idea. This is literally about how a war on the other side of the planet is hitting your wallet right now.
And wow, you can really see the impact right here. For the first time in 3 years, the national average for gas has shot past $4 a gallon. I mean, look at that pre-war price. Feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? And now, Florida's prices are up almost $1.30. Nevada's creeping up to $5. And yeah, California getting close to $6 a gallon. It's a total economic shockwave, and this chart just lays it all out.
And for families, it forces some really tough decisions. Emily Lockitch, who lives in Atlanta, put it perfectly. She said it's not even just about the gas anymore. It's about tightening the whole family budget, not going out to eat as much, watching every single penny. And you know what? That's a story that's playing out in households all over the country.
So, the big question is why? Why is all this happening? Well, to understand that, we have to go to the heart of the crisis. We're talking about a massive military showdown in the Middle East and a really strategic move by Iran, blockading a vital waterway.
Now, the U.S. response has been incredibly swift and powerful. Get this. For the first time in this whole war, the Pentagon has confirmed that American B-52 bombers are flying deep, and I mean deep, into Iranian territory. And these aren't just flyovers for show. No way. These bombers just dropped multiple 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs on an ammo facility in Iran. The explosion was so massive you could see it for miles around. And just to give you a sense of the scale of this operation, a third U.S. aircraft carrier, the USS George H.W. Bush, is now on its way to the region. That's another 4,500 sailors heading over there. I mean, this is a huge military commitment.
And it all comes down to this one spot, the Straits of Hormuz. This is the choke point. Think about it. About a fifth of the entire world's oil supply has to pass through this one narrow channel. So, by blockading it, Iran has pretty much grabbed the global economy by the throat. And that right there, that's the straight line connecting this little waterway to what you're paying at the pump.
And this really captures the disconnect, doesn't it? On one side, you have President Trump saying, "Don't worry, gas prices are going to come tumbling down." But then you look at the other side, and you had the experts at GasBuddy with a pretty grim warning. We could be looking at a national average of $5 a gallon if that strait stays closed. I mean, those are two very different futures we're talking about.
Okay, let's look at how this is getting even bigger. Because this isn't just a US-Iran thing anymore, not by a long shot. The entire region is being pulled into the fire, and it's creating all these different really dangerous flashpoints. I mean, just look at how fast this is escalating. You've got Israel planning a full-on invasion of southern Lebanon, which has already displaced over 500,000 people from their homes. Then, in Baghdad, an American journalist was just kidnapped by a militia backed by Iran. And now Iran is openly threatening to attack American companies. We're talking huge names like Apple. On top of all that, the State Department is telling Americans in Saudi Arabia to be on alert for new threats. The whole conflict is just spreading like wildfire. And you can see the brutal logic of it right here. Israel says its goal is to create a security buffer zone. To do that, they have to push people out of their homes. But to make sure the zone stays a buffer, they plan on destroying the homes and villages themselves. Which means those 600,000 people who've been displaced, well, they might have nothing left to go back to. And that brings us to the next and honestly devastating part of this story. Because beyond all the headlines about military strikes and gas prices, there's a massive humanitarian crisis unfolding. And it's getting worse every single day. 70,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many metric tons of food are just stuck on ships at sea, completely unable to get through the Strait of Hormuz to the people who desperately need it.
The numbers are just staggering. The World Food Program is now saying that an additional 45 million people are about to become what they call acutely food insecure. That basically means they're on the brink of famine. We've got over 1 million people displaced in Lebanon alone, and huge warehouses in Dubai just full of medicine and blankets and aid. They're completely blocked. They can't get supplies out. And to put this all into perspective, experts are warning that if just 10% of Iran's 90 million people are forced to flee their homes, it would spark the largest refugee crisis the world has seen in 25 years. The potential scale of human suffering here, it's just almost impossible to wrap your head around. So all of this, it brings us to this very moment, right now. The U.S. Defense Secretary just said we are entering the most decisive phase of this war. What happens in the next 10 days could literally determine the future of the entire region.
Okay, so here's the timeline we're looking at. Today, that big decisive days warning came out. Now, for the next 10 days, there's this very fragile diplomatic channel that's opened up between the U.S. and Iran's parliamentary speaker, Mohammad Ghalibaf. But here's the catch. All of this is happening with the clock ticking down to April 6th. That's the hard deadline President Trump has given to Iran.
And a retired Army colonel has laid out what he calls 5 triggers that could set off a much wider war. They're like tripwires. Any one of them could tip this whole thing into a regional catastrophe. So what are they? Another attack on a ship in the Strait. The UAE deciding to freeze Iran's financial assets. A mass casualty event, something that kills a lot of U.S. personnel. Other Gulf states jumping into the fight. And maybe the most important one of all, if these diplomatic talks just completely fall apart. So, here we are. We are at this incredible, nail-biting inflection point. Everything, and I mean everything, from the price you pay for gas all the way to the fate of millions of people, it all just hangs in the balance. And as the entire world is watching, we're all left with one single massive question. Will the next 10 days bring a deal, or will they bring a disaster?